Hello, my name is Kayla. I've seen that Tabletop Simulator has been recommended as an alternative to playing paper Magic amid the coronavirus. So when I saw it, someone was saying that it's super easy to learn, and I think a lot of other people agree that there are several learning curves that come with playing the game, and I highly encourage people to use Tabletop Simulator for Magic the Gathering. I just am hoping to clear up some quality of life shortcuts and make it a smoother, easier experience for everybody involved. So I thought I'd make this tutorial and show Tabletop Simulator as it relates to Magic the Gathering. So Tabletop Simulator is on Steam. It's about 20 bucks right now, I think. And if you don't have it already, I recommend buying it because anything you can play in real life, you can play on this game. There's a lot of workshop items that people have poured their heart and soul into making accessible. So I'm assuming though, if you're already here, that you either already own Tabletop Simulator or you're already kind of sold on the concept. So I won't go too much further into it. So with that, let's get started. I loaded up the game, and this is what it brings you to. You've got a couple of options. Configuration. Don't really need to mess with anything like this. Graphics, sounds, controlled. Controls, if you forget, are right here. So lots of keyboard shortcuts that we're going to be going over today. Sound. Interface. Yeah, these are just really don't need to mess with them unless you get really particular about what you want to do. So your two options when you're in game are join or create. If somebody you know is hosting the game, you can go to join. And as you can see, there is a ton of stuff going on Tabletop Simulator. So to weed that out, you can search for a server, hide those that are full, hide locked, which yours is probably going to be locked, so don't hide that. I filter by friends only. That will help me find a lot easier who I know is playing and can join their games. But for our purposes today, and for any purposes of hosting a game, you'll want to create. Multiplayer, obviously. Server name, anything you want. Server password, again, anything you want. Just share it with your players. And you can go up to 10 players in a game. Anywhere between 10 and 2. Which I think is a good number. You can have spectators, you can have players, and if you want other spectators, you can just stream it to your Discord channel or something. But yeah, we can create our server. So this is what it looks like when you load into a game. As you can see, there are several options. So it will spawn with a randomly generated background and a random table. These are just quick views of what these different channels have to offer. Classic is everything that comes with the game. DLC are add-ons through the game that can be bought. But again, everything we really need is in the workshop. Got a ton of stuff in my workshop that I'm subscribed to, but the one I need is right here, so I'm not going to actually open it. So you just click on it right here and load. Alright, and that might take a little bit more time for you depending on your connection, but there's not really too many objects in here that will have to be loaded, so it shouldn't take too long. Key things to notice. This is set up to be played without audio if possible, or if needed. So there's an in-game chat, and throughout this tutorial I will be showing you different things you can do. But first, let's go over what's on the board. This is a workshop item that I created. It's got obviously 6 distinct play zones. It's got zones for each player to place their objects. And our first keyboard shortcut we're going to learn is how to make these bigger for you to see without having to zoom way in. So to do that, you're going to use the Alt key and hover over the item you want to look at. So Alt key, and you can see that. So these cards are locked into place. You can move them if you want to. To unlock it so it can be interacted with, you click L. And as you can see, it highlights now. So you can really arrange these wherever you want. All cards are not this big. These are oversized zones so they don't get mixed up with your deck. But yeah, we've got a library. We've got a command zone. We've got a graveyard. We've got an exile zone. And there's one of these for each player. What else we have on the board is we've got life counters defaulted to 40. These are not locked. The common way to change the value is to right click and go to rotation value. The shortcut is to hover and use your number keys on your keyboard. You just type it and it goes exactly where you need to go. This feature rotates it based on your point of view. So if I rotate here and type, it'll focus it from this angle. To rotate, I'm just using my arrow keys on my keyboard. So I will put that back to 0. But my 0 key doesn't seem to work on here for some reason, so we'll just do I wonder, is it... for 0 on these, you need to type in 10 because that's how it's coded. It's coded as 10. And you just type 10 in quick succession and it'll go. The other thing here that's important is a bowl of D20s which are color coded. These are intended to be used for commander damage. So for my commander, if I deal damage to orange, we can just move it up here. And you can type it to whatever value you need. Yes, I'm aware commander damage goes to 21, but if you count from 1 to 20, and you do one more, you know you're going to die. So it gets you close enough to tracking that it does the job. So in each bowl, there are 5 D20s. If you, for some reason, get your commander stolen and you need an additional one for your own commander dealing damage to yourself, you can control copy, so control C, and control V to paste, and you've got yourself an extra dice. You can copy and paste any object on the board. And for some reason, that's not staying in the bowl, and it's bothering me. But we don't need those. Next up, we've got this giant D20. Only purpose in mind for that is to roll and see who goes first in turn order. So you can long click and pick it up and shake it to roll, or you can hover and click R a couple times and it will roll it for you. And that's what that's for. Next thing we have here, again, like I said, this is intended to be played without audio if need be. So to indicate turns passing, I have this token here. Again, I'm using Alt to bring up this big view. It says pass turn. So at the end of everybody's turn, they can just pass it to the next player's indicator. Or if you have an interrupt you'd like to play, you can take this piece and put it on your color so you can indicate that you have a response. Next things we have are hidden zones. The hidden zones are color coordinated according to the player that is assigned that zone. So I can see what's inside white zone because I am the white colored player. However, you can click on the people, list of people in the room will show up here, and you can change colors. And if I go to red, I can no longer see inside white's box, but I can see inside red's box. So that will allow you to hide anything you don't want your opponents to see, or anything that's not public knowledge. Things that would go in here would be two-faced cards, double-faced, tokens, or yeah, anything really that is just not public knowledge. The next thing on the board that we can go over are these bags. So these are infinite bags. You can draw something out of it and not have to worry about putting it back. You can just delete it. So AWSD allows you to pan the camera and move where you need to. I am moving the camera otherwise by holding right button or right mouse key and dragging, and that'll move the camera. So in here we have infinite number of D12s, and these are intended to use for like planeswalker loyalty or commander tax tracking, charge counters, really anything up to 12. If you need something other than that, you can go to the objects list and components, and these are all the items the game has prepared made. So you can go to dice, and plastic has better distinction on colors, or you can use metal. It's a personal preference really, but you've got D4s, D6s, and really any dice that you could need. And you can just drag and drop that onto the table if you need it. But we don't, so you can just use the delete key to delete things you don't need. And here is an infinite bag of reversible 1/1 counters. So you can flip it by using the F key. So on one side it's negative, and on the other side it's positive. So you can just stack these up, and they'll snap to each other, and it'll tell you how many are there. And again, it's an infinite bag, so once you're done with them, you can delete them and not have to worry about it. Over here, in the rare occasion you need them, there are 11 poison counters. If you need more, you can just copy paste. Again, to pick up one, you click and drag quickly. Otherwise, you long click and you can move the whole stack. Let's see. Something I'm going to go over real quick because I forgot to last time. Let's say you have all those and you don't want to stack them up one by one. If you hold left mouse key and drag, you'll highlight items in that box, and you can click the G button and it'll gather them. That's great for cleanup. Once you have all your things on the board and you want to shuffle, you just G and then you use R and you can shuffle. So that's another reason why if you don't mind where these are right here, I wouldn't bother unlocking them and moving them, because if you do and you gather everything, it will include that and it'll kind of make a mess. Part of this view is your playmat is covered by the hidden zone. If you need access to that, you can just hold right button and do a bird's eye view, and you can have access to this part. Probably the biggest thing people want to know about playing Tabletop Simulator with Magic the Gathering is how to import your deck. There are several deck loaders out there. Frogger or something like that is one of them. I've tried it. It didn't really stand out to me, or it was overly complicated. But I found one made by Dark Stapler on Steam, and that's what's right here. So I have included his loader in my workshop table, so you don't have to subscribe to it yourself, but I would definitely encourage you to, because he or she put in a lot of work on it and it's a really great item. But you don't have to load it or anything since it's already here. So this works with tappedout.net, and it uses the deck slug. So let's see. The deck slug, I was really confused by that term when I first tried to use this, but on Dark Stapler's web or Steam Workshop list, he has a tutorial on how to do this, but I'll walk through as well. So again, it works off of tappedout.net. So in order for it to work properly, you do have to upload your deck to tappedout.net, and it has to be public in order to load. But once you have it uploaded, you will see the web address for your page. It'll be tappedout.net/mtgdex/deckslug, which is also known as the deck name, and then another slash. If you have anything after that last slash, like a string of numbers and a dash and a question mark, your deck is private or not published, and it will not work. So for me, I'm going to copy my deck name, or the deck slug. Mine's preceded by a date. I don't know if they all have a date attached, but you want to grab everything between the slash after MTG decks and before the final slash. And then you come back to Tabletop Simulator and you go in here. When you see the T pop up, you click, and that'll allow you to type. And you can just control copy and control paste. And then you click load deck. This is going to do some stuff over here. It'll take a little bit of time, and then I'll pop up loading right here. And there it is. So it's got your whole deck here, and then if you have any dual-sided cards, they'll be stacked separately. For instance, this is a Primal Amulet. The reason why it's loaded separately is because it is a dual-sided card. There is a proxy or a placeholder actually in here. And you play with the proxy in your deck until it hits the battlefield, and then you can put out the actual dual-sided card and replace it. So this dual-sided card would actually hang out in your hidden zone until you're ready for it. So next thing we want to do is find our commander. So you want to right click and search. And the cool thing with this deck loader is it identifies the card and names them all. So you can use the search bar up here. So I'll search for Niv Mizzet. Niv Mizzet. Perun is the one that I want. Oh, that's Draco G. That's Perun. Okay. And you can just drag and drop it, and it pulls it out of the deck. That search feature is really useful if you have to search your library. You don't have to go card by card. And then once you get the cards you need, you can right button and shuffle. Again, to flip cards, I'm using the F key. And then just for demonstration purposes, I will pull out the proxy. So this copy of the card is in the deck. And again, it has a plain back, so it doesn't get singled out in the stack of cards, and it's indistinguishable. And then when you play this card, it'll just be replaced with your hidden card. So these two typically should snap. There we go. And then right button to shuffle. So once it loads in here, you can highlight and drag into your play zone. So next thing that we'll learn is rotating cards without right clicking. You can use Q to rotate counterclockwise or E to rotate clockwise. I have it set to a 90-degree angle. You can change that, but honestly I don't think you really need it to be anything else. So the hidden card will go in here. Then Niv Mizzet can go in the command zone. And your library can go in the library. Alright, and then if we change colors over here, let's say we go to blue, you can't see that there's a Primal Amulet in there because that's knowledge only known to the white player. So we'll go back. And then Next thing we have to do is draw cards to start the game. There's of course a way to right click and draw. However, the keyboard shortcut would be to hover over the deck and click the number of cards you need, so 7. And that will move it to your hand. Your hand will show up at the bottom of your screen, and it will also be on the edge of your table. If you want to look at the board without your hand being right here, you can click H, and it will hide it from the bottom of your screen. To play cards, you draw cards you hold drag and click, and you move it out to the field. The thing about this table is that I have it set up to snap to a grid to the center, so it stays nice and neat. That's really a personal preference. You can turn off the grid snapping through options, but as you can see, they're set up for the cards, and they are sized particularly so that they work well. I'll turn off the grid again so it's invisible. And once your cards are on the table, to tap lands, again, it's a quick Q or E to tap. And then personally, I like to stack my lands that are either tapped or untapped into one stack, because if you hover, it tells you how many are in that stack. So that's a quick way to keep track of your mana. Of course, with something like Is That Boiler Works, where it taps for 2, it won't be accurate, so I would suggest keeping that one separate. But then you can tap them together, or you can separate them and tap what you need and leave what you don't need untapped. So let's say you're playing a game and you've got all these cards on the table, and it's game over. So all you need to do to clean up is drag and drop, or drag and click G, and we'll gather everything back to the deck. And you can click R to shuffle, and you're ready to play another game. In the one thing about this deck loader that it does not have are tokens for token generators. As in Paper Magic, it's not mandatory to have the actual card for the token. There are other ways to get those cards if you're attached to them, but otherwise you can go into Objects and Components and find something that you'd like to do. I like to use figurines, or I like to use RPG kits. Just makes it a little bit more fun, but really you can use anything that the table understands is a token, and you can use die or counter however you need to indicate what they are. And again, you can just drag and drop them to the table. For future games, if you would like, if the deck loader is not available, or so that you don't have to go through that whole process again, you can save your deck as an object. So once you load your deck in, I suggest gathering it all in place, and then you highlight it. And then where you put your pointer is important in the next spot, because that will create a thumbnail for the saved object you're about to create. So I'm going to highlight Niv Mizzet Peru, and then you right click and save object. There's folders. I've created several different folders, but the one I need is Deck's Commander. And then you can rename it to be whatever you want, and then you click save. I'm not going to save it right now because I already have this deck saved, but that's the last step. And then in order to bring that saved object back, you go to Objects, Saved Objects, and it brings up your folders and everything that you need. So you would go to where it's at, and then the one that I just made is Nivy Boy. And there's everything you need. If you need counters and don't want to load them in through objects every time, you could also include them in your little gathered pile of things and save it with your saved object, and then move it into your hidden zone during the game. Other decks in here have been loaded with other deck loaders, and I think this one was with Frogger. The reason why I don't like it is has a lot of issues there, and then it'll spawn cards that we can't read, and it varies for who can't see what. So I consider them to be unreliable, which is why Dark Stapler's deck loader is my favorite. But you can get everybody loaded in. In order to import saved objects to a game, the host will need to promote people to admin, I think is the technical role, and they'll be able to load objects. Something you will want to disable is permissions. Admin, this will give you all the different things that you can do. Table flip, I always make sure to disable. Let's see. And painting really depends on how much you trust your players. But next thing we're going to go through and over here is this tool list. So these, of course, you can click on them to change them, but you can also flip through them using the function keys. So main one you'll want is grab, which is F1. There is the vector paint. Zones, honestly, I would leave it alone, but this controls hidden zones and hand zones and everything. Probably the next important one after the hand, or after the grab, is line, which is F4. So F4 will allow you to left click and drag. So I can say Niv Mizzet is pinging green for their life total, or I can ping a creature. You can left click and let go, and it'll cause an arrow to pop up. I'm going to flip back to grab with F1 real quick to drop off the commander and the zone. Just put these guys back where they belong. Something accessible only to the host of the table is points. These are snap points, which cause objects to lock onto that place. So if it's in the general vicinity of that area, it will lock there. I probably wouldn't mess with them unless you really need to. I've got them set up pretty instinctually, so it defies the rules of the grid though. So if it has option to snap to the grid or to a point, it will snap to the point. Next up we have flick. Really not applicable in here, but you drag and click, I think. Yep, you highlight an object and click that way. There is joint. That's an advanced feature we don't really need. There's text. That one will probably be useful. I think that is F7. So if you have a card out that targets another card on the battlefield, you can go near it and click, and you can type what card you're targeting if you need to. And then when you're done with it, you can just delete. The gizmos, only one I would think that you would need maybe is scale, but you can also use that by right-clicking on what you need. I don't think you need to switch to a whole tool for it. Decals, these are things you make, not really necessary here. Let's see, F1 to go back to grab. We'll pick this guy up and put him down. So yeah, I think we've covered everything we needed. We've got our deck loaded in. We've got the basics of this table. Really every aspect of this table figured out. So I'm going to go ahead and end it here. If you think of anything else we need to cover, just let me know. I will include links to the workshop items for this game table and the original link to Dark Stapler's deck loader for you to use. If you don't want to use my table, no hard feelings. If you need the deck loader, get your game set up and click on games here, go to workshop, and you'll have to be subscribed to his deck loader for it. But go through the list and you can actually load it in game from here. Do not click on the thumbnail because that will load out the entire game and swap everything out. What you want to do is click on options and expand, and you want to drag and drop it into the game. Yeah, so you can put that into whatever game you need, load in a deck, and then when you're done you can just delete it. And yeah, so I'm gonna call it. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this improves your experience with playing Tabletop Simulator on or for Magic during these troubling times and just any time. I think it's really a great resource, and I'm happy to contribute. So stay healthy, stay well, stay safe, and I guess I'll talk to you when I talk to you. Bye.